Redeem Academy. Hey, what is up, Science Squirrels? Johnny here. Welcome to Redeem Academy. I'm here to help you make the most of your education in science while giving God the glory he deserves. We are starting our unit on taxonomy today. That means we're on lesson 1, taxonomic ranks. The big question today is, how does the classification system Linnaeus created help us see the order God designed in the living world? You should know. 4 out of 5 Trash Pandas recommend subscribing to Redeem Academy. And they say that if you really want to avoid getting caught raiding garbage cans in the middle of the night, you should pick up a notebook at redeemacademy.org. All right, so the main character of today's lesson is Carl Linnaeus, and luckily somehow in the 1700s he already had a vlog going, so we're just going to watch a little part of that today.
What's up, peeps? Oh, do you like my relaxation tape? It's called Sounds from the Jungle. Welcome to my vlog, guys.
Okay, we're gonna back that up. I'm pretty sure that is a mole. He's kissing a mole. That's a nice touch.
In Sweden. I'm Carl Linnaeus. For those of you who are new to my channel, I am a botanist and zoologist, which basically means not only that I love plants and animals, but that I am a scientist who specializes in the science of plants and animals.
All right, I'm gonna zoom forward.
It also helps that creating this classification has made me pretty popular. Let's just say my subscribers have certainly gone up since I devised it. My new system means each organism will have a 2-part Latin scientific name. The system I devised classified different organisms through hierarchy. Hierarchy meaning how important and powerful each organism is. This determines...
All right, hierarchy is basically levels of classification.
Each organism's ranking. The most amazing thing about what I've developed is that every plant and animal, including us humans, is classified under a group. So no matter what language you speak and where you are across the world, the group of organisms will always be called the same. Take us humans, for example. We will always be classified as Homo sapiens, no matter where someone might be in the world. And a house cat would be Felis catus. It's ingenious, isn't it? Even if I do say so myself.
All right, so here is our boy Carl Linnaeus on the cover, dabbing it up in the forest in Sweden. And we are going to flip to lesson 1 now. And here is a slightly more accurate cartoon of Carl Linnaeus here. And you can see he's holding a plant. So he was really into plants. Okay, and as I mentioned just a second ago, his name was Carl Linnaeus. Let's give Carl some color. All right, so Carl Linnaeus was really into plants, and he was really into animals, and he was really into categorizing plants and animals. And so he got frustrated, or the way I think of this, I don't know all the details of his life that well, but the way I think of this is he was frustrated by the fact that there were different types of organisms out there. And I think of it in terms of plants, because plants are so hard to tell apart in my mind. Like they all look about the same to me because I'm just not that interested in plants. You know, people are naming things different names in different parts of the world, and they're actually naming the same thing different names. And so a good example of this is a cougar. And so if we look at, back at the notes here, if we look at this little guy right here, this guy is what I call a cougar. Now I live in Oregon, and in Oregon we call this a cougar. Okay? But depending on the part of the country that you live in, you might call this thing something else. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I go to Google and I type in mountain lion right here. And Google automatically doesn't bring up the word mountain lion, but actually brings up the word cougar. And where I live in Oregon, people pretty much use these two words interchangeably when they're talking about this kind of cat. Some people call it a cougar, some people call it a mountain lion, and I think I kind of live on the boundary. I asked ChatGPT, where do people call it a mountain lion? And ChatGPT said, in California, they call it a mountain lion, and in Canada, they call it a cougar. And so I kind of live in between Canada and California. And so I was like, okay, I probably live in the boundary where people call it anything. I asked ChatGPT, where do they call it in Texas? In Texas, they're going to call it a cougar. So, you know, depending on that part of the United States, it's going to be either one. But then you go back and to Google and you type in panther or Florida panther, and those crazy people over in Florida, which I've never been to Florida, I'd love to visit the place. Sounds like a nice place. In Florida, the panther is actually their state animal. Where I live in Oregon, the beaver is our state animal, which is kind of a weird, cool animal to have as your state animal. But in Florida, the panther is their state animal. So they definitely call this thing a panther, but it's the exact same type of animal. It's a mountain lion to me. I remember the first time I heard they called cougars panthers in Florida. I was like, what? What are they doing over there in Florida? Okay, and then it gets even weirder. If you type in puma, you get a pair of shoes. Wait, that's the wrong puma. If you type in South America puma, in South America, which maybe it's part of speaking Spanish, I don't know. They don't call this a panther or a cougar, they call it a puma. And it's still the same species. And so this was the problem Linnaeus was dealing with, is humans by region call different creatures different names. And today we call these common names. So people do use different common names for the same animal. They're talking about the same animal, and it's hard to keep track. If you're a scientist, you're like, wait, so what animal are we talking about? And if you're in Europe, you know, you've got multiple languages. He was in Sweden. And so you've got Swedish, you've got English, you've got Spanish, you've got French, you've got Italian. And it's kind of like living in the United States. We have California, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, which those big Western states are kind of like countries in Europe. And so he is trying to get everybody to talk about the same creatures with the same words. So we go over here to the notes, and whether we're talking about a cougar, a mountain lion, a puma, or a panther, these are all the common name for the same creature. And so Linnaeus is like, all right, guys, enough is enough. We're going to come up with a clean, simple solution to this problem. And he calls it binomial nomenclature. Okay, so his special way scientists name living things using two Latin words. It's called bi, which means two, nomial, which nombre in Spanish is name. Binomial means to name, and then nomenclature, no way I'm fitting that right there, so I'm going to write it down here. Nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature means to name system. The guy who came up with this is named Carl Linnaeus, and he really launched the field of science where you categorize and name things, and that's called taxonomy. Now notice that he used Latin. So I have a couple things to say about Latin. Why was Latin the choice? A couple reasons he chose Latin. Number one, the Bible was currently translated into Latin. Its original language is Greek, but they were reading it in Latin in the 1700s. So most people knew Latin, and Latin was a dead language. A dead language is a language nobody speaks anymore. And that's actually good, because right now, today, in English, teenagers ruin the English language, in my old man opinion. So what teenagers do is they take our English language, and I blame teenagers for this. They take our our English language, and then they add all these new words to it all the time, and our language is constantly changing and evolving. And so let me just give you, I bet I could give you 10 in about 10 seconds. Riz, banger, cracked, boomer. My son right now has been calling me an unk. I don't even know. It just means that this is the new word for boomer. Okay. Chat. I'm out. There's so many more though. I don't know what it is about the young generation, but they take words and they make new words, which is actually kind of fun. But it causes language to evolve. And so a dead language doesn't change. And so the meaning of the words stays the same with the creature. And this is also, I think, why God used Greek as a great language for the Bible, because we now know exactly what the words in the Bible mean, and they're not changing. So we can go back to the documents of the time when the Bible was written, and we could read the original Greek of the Bible and go, okay, what did this mean in that time to those people? Because the Greek is also pretty much a dead language. Koine Greek. So that two-part Latin name is called an animal's scientific name. And so the scientific name of a cougar is Puma concolor, which just means with color. So it pretty much just means cat with color. And so for people who speak Latin, a lot of times the scientific name is kind of clues to what this creature is. To all of us now who are alive today, it's like, I have no idea what these mean. Let me tell you some of the fun, interesting scientific names. Scientists sometimes have a sense of humor. Check this out. All right, so we have pop culture references. So we have aggravation, which is a beetle whose genus is Agra. We have, let's look for the good ones, Pizzeria, that, you know, where they make pizzas. E2 Brutus, that's a joke that you probably don't understand. Bah humbuggy, okay, you can understand that one. Here's one that you will all understand. Spongiforma squarepantsy, a fungus named after SpongeBob SquarePants. Shout out to SpongeBob. I know there are some for Star Wars. Let's look for those. Okay, here we go. Because here's the thing. Science nerds love Star Wars. Here we go. Darth Vaderum, a mite genus named after Darth Vader. So a whole genus, not just a species. Yoda perpertata. Okay, a deep-sea acorn worm with ear-like appendages named after Master Yoda. This I must see. I'm not really seeing the likeness here. He's got long ears. That thing's got some long ears. Somebody decided, somebody was too much of a Star Wars fan and named their discovery after Master Yoda's ears. A little bit of a stretch. Okay, Waki Chewbacca. There's a moth named after Chewbacca. Okay. Han Solo is a trilobite fossil. You got to see what a trilobite looks like. Okay. That is a trilobite right there. All right, so you get the idea. There's lots of weird genus and species names out there. All right, so what's with the big picture on the front? After Linnaeus came up with genus and species, scientists later were like, let's build some even bigger categories here. And so now we have what is called kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I missed a finger there. An even better way to remember this is kids picking candy on freeways get splattered. There you go. Okay, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Kids picking candy on freeways get splattered. I can't seem to talk and push my fingers out at the same time. So we come over here and we can see what is like the address to get to a cougar. You have to start at the kingdom of Animalia. So that's called a kingdom, okay? And so all of these creatures are in the animal kingdom. And then we're going to narrow it down a little bit. 3 people just fell out of this kingdom. Do you notice who fell out? I noticed it, Mr. Olgers. It was the jellyfish, the fly, and the starfish. Okay? But for some reason, I also threw in a snake here. I think I'm wanting you to realize, hey, just because these guys are here doesn't mean there aren't other things as well. Okay? So now I'm putting the snake in as a representative, saying, hey, yeah, these guys are in this kingdom, but lots of other things are in this kingdom too. Can you think of 12 things that are not represented here that are also in the animal kingdom? There's so many. I don't have a dog in here. I don't have a crab in here. I don't have a whale in here. I don't have a bat in here. There's all kinds of things in the animal kingdom that I'm not showing you that are also in the animal kingdom, okay? So, bloop, I threw a rattlesnake in because he's in the animal kingdom and he's a chordate, okay? Chordates have a cord in their back. They have a nerve cord in their back. Other chordates that are not pictured here, all these chordates actually have vertebrae. These are all vertebrates. But there are chordates that are not vertebrates, like worms. Okay, worms don't have spinal cords, but they're still in the chordate family. Vertebrates are called a subphylum, but this is a phylum. Okay, so everybody has a cord in their back. That's why they're in this phylum. And then we drop out everybody who doesn't have nipples. Okay, everybody in this group has nipples. They have mammary glands, so they make milk. So everybody here makes milk. Did you know that dolphins make milk? They have little baby dolphins that come and suckle from their nipples and get milk. So kingdom, phylum, class, kids picking candy off freeways. So order, kids picking candy off freeways. Man, you thought your mom was going to let you do my curriculum, but then I told you kids picking candy off freeways get splattered. It's all over for me. Okay, order, mammals have nipples, carnivores, carnivora. Carnivores eat meat. So all these creatures like to chew on tasty little critters, okay? So these are all carnivores. They're in the order Carnivora. And then we drop down even more, and we have felines, Felidae. Did you see the word feline there? They're all cats. This is a funny looking cat. I'm going to show you a video of him in a second. So these are all cats, felines, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family. I have to like say it all, like the ABCs. Oh, I can't even spell family. In order to get it out, I have to start at the beginning. And then we get down to puma. These 2 guys are the only 2 creatures in the genus Puma. This guy's called the otter cat. Let me show you an otter cat. Otter cats look like otters. Sometimes people think they are otters. And this guy is the cougar. They're both in the genus Puma. And then finally, the only guy who's in the genus Puma whose species name is concolor is the mountain lion, cougar, puma, or panther, whatever you want. And his species name is concolor. So, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Kids picking candy off freeways get splattered. That's also just some good life advice. Kids picking candy off freeways get splattered. Maybe you shouldn't pick candy off freeways. Let me show you an otter cat. All right, so here's this little guy, and that other guy is an otter. There's an otter, okay? And so otters have long, slender bodies. Jaguarundis, it's like jaguarundis. I don't know how you say their name exactly. But these little guys live in South America and Latin America. They sometimes come into Texas from Mexico. And they look like a house cat, but longer. And they I think, hang out in water, maybe, is why they say that they get mistaken for otters. I don't really know. They're like a little jungle cat. They have a long tail, and that is a mountain lion, and that is a cheetah. I think we've missed our B-roll on this already. So here they are, and they just are like a long, skinny cat. And I would guess they're probably descended from the same kind of ancestor as a cougar, but that they've diversified into a different niche. Look at those funny looking things. I want one as a pet. Okay, and so that's what they are. They're small little cat. But they are in the same genus as cougars, and so they have the same puma at the front of their name. Now, I have a metaphor for how to think of this kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species thing. It's like an address for how to get to the exact species, okay? So let's go with Donald Trump. Where does Donald Trump live? If I wanted to send a package to Donald Trump. So right now, I live in the United States, and Donald Trump is my president. So he lives at the White House. So the current kingdom that Donald Trump lives in is the United States. I'm going to write USA right here. That's sort of like his country. There are a lot of people in the United States. So if I'm sending him a package from Australia, okay, there's a lot of people in the United States. So I'm going to need to narrow it down further. Okay, so country. Now I'm going to go to state. All right, so here's the United States. And then where in the United States does Donald Trump live? He doesn't actually live in a state. This is an interesting thing about our founders. They didn't want the president to live in a state. So he actually lives inside of something called the District of Columbia. I'm going to zoom in on the District of Columbia. Zoom, okay. And now you can see this little red box right here. And so that's the District of Columbia. So I'm just going to put DC right here. And then within the District of Columbia, he lives in a city called Washington, D.C. Now you know what the D.C. stands for. All right, so basically the same thing. So now I'm going to put Washington, D.C. And so notice that every time we put another level, we are excluding things. So we were at a lot of people, now there's fewer people, now there's fewer people. We're getting closer and closer to Donald Trump and sending him a package every time. Okay. And now, within Washington, D.C., he lives on Pennsylvania Avenue. Oops. Okay, so we're zooming in. Here's Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay, I'm going to write Penn Avenue. All right. Now, I only knew this today from watching a movie, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C. Now we're zooming in a little more, okay? And you can see the red arrow on that. And now I'm going to see if I can drop that thing so I get to the street level. This little guy, here he is. So if you ever use Google Maps, you can do this. Looks like I can drop him right here, right in front of the White House. Look at this. I'm in the White House parking lot now. I don't know why they're letting me drive right up to the White House. Oh, can't quite get there. There it is. There's the White House. I can see it. Okay, so I'm just going to write this. The house address is 1600. And then, if I'm filling out the box to send President Trump my letter, it says, hey, bro, can I borrow some money? I'm going to write his genus and species, okay? So genus and species, Homo sapien. Homo is the genus. So Donald is going to be genus, okay? And then species is going to be Trump. In some ways, I think my metaphor would work better if I flipped it around because there's actually two Trumps, or there's like mini Trumps. There's Ivanka, and then there's Barron, and then there's Melania, or however you say his wife's name. And then the Donald, finally, okay? And so if to get the package to the right Trump, it needs to be the species name. But you get the metaphor, hopefully, at this point, okay? And so that is what classification is like. It's like narrowing it down till we get to the right person at the right address. Last thing we need to do is write down kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Let's do it. All right, Linnaeus' biggest group, kingdom. The group underneath kingdom, phylum. The way to sort members of a phylum into smaller groups, classes. The way to organize classes into smaller sets, kingdom, phylum, class, orders. Okay, kids, picking, candy, off. Freeways, families. The only two that Linnaeus came up with were genus and species. Okay, and after Linnaeus, other scientists were like, great idea, bro. Let's make some more levels. Built on taxonomy from there. Let's go back to the big question. How does the classification system Linnaeus created help us see the order God designed in the living world? So if you're an evolutionist, classification is like your way of saying, here's how these things evolved. See, these things all evolved from these things, and these things evolved from these things. If you're a Christian, like I've thought a lot about this evolution stuff. Linnaeus thought that he was figuring out the order of God's creation. Like he saw his work, he was a God-fearing Christian man, and he thought he was figuring out like the order of God in creation. And I think part of that was like there's another quote that when we do science, we're thinking God's thoughts after him. I actually think when we see like those branches of the trees of an evolutionary thing, we're not seeing that these creatures evolved from these creatures, but when we go down the trail of like, oh, these are all the mammals, and these are all the carnivores, or these are all the vertebrates, these are all the animals, we're actually going down the path of like, this was God's mind. As God created carnivores, he's like, I'm going to make some carnivores that do this. I'm going to make some carnivores that do that. I'm going to make some mammals that do this. I'm going to make some mammals that do that. And just like when we make things, we make variations as we create. I think we see in the way that creatures are similar, and there are some that probably, like at the family level, things probably did get off the ark and evolve. Like you got cats, and they probably all came from two cats. You got dogs, and they probably all came from wolves. But then at the further back, it's probably more that we're seeing like God's mind. Like I'm gonna make like mammals are not all from one pair of mammals, because you got mammals that are dolphins, you got mammals that are tigers. Those are way far apart. But instead you have God saying, oh, I like this design, and I'm going to do this way, and then I'm going to go over here, I'm going to use that same design over here and do different things. And we're actually seeing the order of how God made things and used similar patterns in different ways, and almost seeing the order of like he made it here like this, and then he was still in that mindset and making things this way and still making those things that way. And so it doesn't have to be evolution. It could be he's still got these same design models in his mind, and he's creating in these ways with those same patterns. So that's kind of my take on it. We see some of the order God designed in the living world as we follow the classification patterns that are out there. Hope you had a great day today. I hope this is a good lesson for you. At the end of the day for me, maybe it's the start of the day for you. Be your best self today. Live life to the fullest for the glory of God. Be a blessing to everyone around you. Have a great day. Bye.